pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda. You were gonna put something under your report and then discussions. Is that just under report?
It's just being a report. The only thing I was going to add, Commissioner, was the sheriff wanted to make a request on a grant request. It was, so with the board's permission, maybe that could be number 5 under the sheriff's agenda. And then I also wanted the board just to remind them that you do have a resolution before you, 02-23-2A. That's to replace the resolution that's in your packet. There was a slight error on the bid amount. So those are the 2 things I want to bring the board's attention.
So a corrected amount on but that doesn't have an effect on the agenda though.
No, it doesn't, but just for the record, yes.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by John,
I'll second.
second by Dave. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Minutes. Corrections, additions, deletions.
I had a couple spelling mistakes on the first page there. One, I believe it was Joe Stenger, not Singer,
Yeah.
right?
It's,
Stenger.
Yep, correct.
And then under my report, it's the Wanigan, Wannnigan Park.
I had a couple things, it's very minor, but under Commissioner's open forum, I would, under Don Scary, I would say commission, it says welcome new commissioners, then it should probably say in his opinion, Commissioner Barber. I would just add in his opinion rather than, and then under Carrie, probably don't abbreviate administrator, just admin. On page 2 of 5, number 3, the set under county administrator report, Brian Rubenstein, can you just put that he's from probation, or so it kind of gives a reference to that.
There's his last name, I don't think is correct, so we'll have to update that as well.
Page 3 of 5. I mean, I was just thinking under human resources policies, the statement that I would like working sessions with departments probably doesn't need to be in there. It's just a information, not a. On page 4 of 5, land use by Steve Skoog. I think number 2, motion second to approve 50% of snowmobile trail cleanup costs. It should probably reference due to that early storm, and the cleanup cost is only on county tax forfeit land that has with forest trails. So we're not, it doesn't give the impression we're cleaning up all county or all snowmobile trails. On number 4, motion second to Swiffer grant. It's just confusing how that reads. To approve, motion second to approve the Swiffer grant, quote.
and professional services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you,
Motion and say to approve Swiffer grant and professional services. That makes
for
sense.
$5,000?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the only other thing is on the last page, motion number 3, motion second to approve the aquatic invasive, motion second to approve aquatic invasive species agreement, to instead of aquatic invasive species delegation agreement, 2023 delegation agreement. So take the second approval out And so put accept the 22 program report as presented. And then on number 4, motion to accept the egg inspector report. I think that's probably appropriate instead of approve it.
Yep.
Any other corrections, additions, deletions? If not, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Erica. Second, I'll second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Open forum. Willis? And state your name and address for the record.
Sorry.
I said state your name and address for the record as you come up to speak.
That and failed. This would, here's only be it. So that. Half. 42 miles. The second part of the project that involved extensive tree removal, shaded hill, excuse me, the hills section to shade. Been postponed. Here. Whether or not that will work, only to study what they cut enough. So we're really trying to intervene, and make that study, efficacy study, rather than impact study. So we still have some truth there, but again, thanks to the county board for working with us and trying to persuade. The project has the importance as a goal because it has statewide implications. Other any bylaws around state highway rights of way. So the guys that will take this on the statewide issue. Spring. And just administration and they can both do a nice job.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you, Willis. Jane? I don't know if that's on. So
Is it great?
Jane Hokinson, 19552 County Highway 25, Detroit Lakes. And I have some comments for your consideration. We now have 2 new commissioners seated. Both of these individuals have strong ties to unions. During Commissioner Dave Meyer's committee report on Tuesday, February 8th, he concluded with a statement that our county employees are our strongest assets. Mr. Meyer, I beg to differ. Our strongest assets are the fine residents that pay their taxes. In your experience, I understand that you have been a union steward. In that position, you solely advocated and negotiated higher wages and better benefits for union employees. I understand that you even attended a meeting at Human Services with county employees before you were even seated. Seems like you knew you were going to get that committee appointment ahead of time. My understanding is that you even got a standing ovation. Here's a few bios on some folks that need you to advocate for them. I will not give their full names for privacy's sake. I have Leah, a widow, lives in her own home and cares for herself. Needless to say, she's on a fixed income, and an increase in her property tax would be a hardship. Leah is 99 years old. You are representing and advocating in her best interest. Sarah, recently widowed, lives in a rented apartment. Due to her husband's passing, she will now only get half of his retirement. She is unsure if she will be able to afford to stay in her apartment. An increase in her landlord's property tax would be passed on to her. Needless to say, she's on a fixed income. Sarah is 76 years old. You are representing and advocating her best interests. Then I got Don. Don and his wife are living in their own home and hope to stay there for as long as they can. Don and his wife have health challenges and they live on a fixed income. An increase in their property tax would be a hardship to them. Don is 86 and his wife is 81. You are representing and advocating for their best interests. Do you see that caring for the employees at Human Services is by far not your best asset? The above residents of Becker County need you to hold the line for them. Most of these examples are lifelong residents that have paid their dues. A spokesperson for Human Services has made the statement many times, we can earn more money at Walmart or McDonald's. Those are multi-million-dollar companies. So I don't think we can compete with them, or I don't want to. We do not need the continual poison that ruins a good work environment for all. Do we have good employees? Yeah, we do. We want them to have a fair salary and benefits plan. We are currently in an economic downturn, recession that could turn to a depression. You don't have to go far to see the increase in the price of living. We need to consider all the residents of Becker County, not 1% employees. Thank you.
Okay, Bill? William? You don't have to speak if you don't wish to, but your name's on the,
As long as we're on the agenda.
Okay. okay, well, that concludes the open forum. No one else is. Okay, reports and correspondence. I will begin if John and I were at Public Works meeting. The crane installations hopefully to begin February 27th. It's kind of one of the highlights, one of the big highlights left in if you've been out there, that's a huge crane crossing that the whole span, and that's pretty significant when that goes up. We are finishing up the polished floors hopefully by the 6th of March. We are actually checking dye colors because the dye that they put in that we finally agreed on, it's just polished concrete that we're finishing the floor with. It's not any, but they threw a dye in to have a color. Well, they threw the wrong mixture in when we sampled. So they're putting another one. And I think Jim decided, we gave the authority to Jim to decide which. So we went with a gray or a black. Did you decide which one it was?
They didn't finish it.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, it's just a colored stamp, and it didn't matter a whole lot to me which one we went with. So we, anything to add to the Public Works? Any questions on the Public Works building? It's on schedule and there's no more, I mean, it's been pretty.
No, it's moving along with painting. The bathroom tiling is pretty much all complete. And we just had a little discussion probably the time before on dividers and so forth in the bathroom itself, but.
Yeah, we have we have one shower, and right now there's just going to be curtains on it, and it's kind of, but if you don't put just curtains on, if you put a door on it, we were informed that then you have to have a 5-foot radius turnaround for, so we just said, well, we'll just go with curtains then, and that's fine. Otherwise it won't pass inspection. Going on to the sheriff, we have most of the things on the agenda. We had a pretty big discussion on mental health, and then the release planner discussion, and that's something that we want to work with human services on. And Brian Rubenstein was the presenter on that with Paula, and it's a position that they have at the state office that they're actually going down a position. A county, he's not going to fill that county position at the. But this new position then would take the place of that, and it would be kind of that transition from jail to outside life of the jail. And I think that would be very helpful and hopefully transition people much better. But I'm going to be moving forward working with human services to try to get that transition better. So right now they're just, walk out the door. I don't know, John, did you have anything to add, or Pat, to that position?
No,
It's
there was an
ongoing.
article on the state level on trying to come up with the same type help when incarcerated people are released, that they have somewhere to go as far as some type of money in their pocket so they can sustain themselves for a little bit, and more direction and help, I guess, instead of just putting them out on the street. So,
And it's by statute that we should develop a discharge plan to help with that transition. So, that was a pretty big discussion. A couple other things are on the agenda. We discussed some future staffing of the jail or of the sheriff's office, and kind of same as highway. When we get a bad winters, there's some individuals that are putting in a lot of overtime that don't put in for overtime. They're just kind of basically donating a lot of time. So just figuring out how we can move forward with that. The other things are on the agenda, I think. John, did you have anything?
I had one other, a little discussion on the impound building that we've been talking about for a couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Pat and I are going to do a little more discussing with some local builders on how to be able to put a building up without involving architects, because there you tack on another couple $100,000 right away or more. So, and it's pretty involved. So,
Yeah, our problem is it's a basic building. I mean, we just want to, but how do we bid it fairly is what we're trying to do, trying to get it to be, so anyone that wants to bid on it, to bid on it without a detailed drawing, it's difficult to do that. So, all right, thank you, John. Finance, we had finance, and I think everything's on the agenda. Pat's going to bring something up that we're going to discuss. But Mike Staber contacted me, and he wanted me to look at a weed harvester, a lake weed harvester. He sent me some videos, and so you have an individual business owner out there looking at purchasing a weed harvester for lakes. Wanted to know the opinion of myself, and I said, well, that's, you get in the water, that's all DNR. And he said, no, he's looked into that too. So it's quite interesting. This would not help with starry stonewort at all, though. That's not but for your curly leaf pondweed and just your regular weeds, I think it would have some great uses. But it's not big enough, I don't think, to service but I think these lake associations or watersheds could purchase one and do their own lakes.
there is one already privately operated in this area
Oh, okay.
that works, I know, on Long Lake, and probably been some on Melissa.
Okay. Laurel update, Terry Khalil has taken over chairs. The former chair has stepped down, so she will represent Becker County well. Everyone knows about the legislative conference is going Zoom meeting. So if you want to get on the Zoom meeting for AMC, you're certainly welcome to. And MRC is going Zoom also. John, if you want to pop on that, I think they sent it to Pat, the the link. So if you want to forward it to, may as well forward it to all commissioners, that link to go. If you're interested in Zoom.
I would try to do the transportation infrastructure one was
Yeah.
Wednesday morning.
It's gonna get packed. I mean, it's packed meetings coming up this week,
Yeah.
so. And everyone received the letter from, Guy Fisher referencing the RAC committee, just for, it was just a nice information meeting or mailing, so, when that comes up, maybe at our next meeting, I think Steve's, when we have our next, then we can discuss it.
Yep.
That was it. Anyone else?
We had our Human Services Committee. We went through all of the ARPA requests that Human Services has and what's been approved, what's been put on hold and what's coming forward. We also had just a short discussion of the work from home policy and how that is working at Human Services and kind of how the work from home policy could potentially change some of the building stuff that we have talked about if there's changes to the work from home policy coming up. Then I also had the EDA meeting, and at the EDA meeting, we talked about, we have a house that's for sale, and Richard and I were just discussing a little bit. They went and toured it this morning, and we have a meeting coming up on Thursday to decide what our plan is for it.
What type of house is it? A Merle house?
It's- Yep, a Merle house
Where is it at? In what town?
on 21.
Okay, in Detroit Lakes.
It's been advertised. Is that what you would call it, Richard? and Pat?
Yeah,
Advertised for
so-
sale for,
We had different offers on it. It doesn't, nothing to what it was appraised for. Okay?
it's not in
And
good
it's not-
condition.
And it's not, I don't know who appraised it. I guess we do know who appraised it.
Was it pays high?
Well, it was 85,000 and for the shape it's in. And so we're gonna have like an emergency meeting or whatever you wanna call it this week to discuss it, a special meeting to talk about it again. And see what we can do with it, see if we can't fix it maybe. We don't want somebody to have problems with, move in there, and there's just a lot of problems with the house that if you're not familiar with construction, you're not gonna notice them. And so so we're gonna talk about what we're gonna do with that house, but right now we just. looked at it
Foundation
yesterday.
issue and,
Well, it had some sewer backup in the basement. Nobody ever done anything with that. It is a block foundation, but that looks all right. It's in the sand, but the floors are sagging. The windows are bad. It smells really bad in there.
you're not doing much for the appreciating the sale.
Well, I'm just saying. Yeah, that's why. So, we want to see if we can do something different instead of, because we do need housing here, so if we
Yeah.
can fix it up and do something with it that way, it'd be better than putting it on. There was just a woman with a couple kids and.
I hate to have someone
She
go into
does-
it like that.
Yeah, and we just didn't want to see that happen, so now we're gonna look at it a different way.
Okay.
So John and I went to the opening of the Historical Society Museum grand opening of their science area. That was really interesting. That was cool. There's a lot of people there. They had most of the second floor was pretty much ready to roll. They had a lot, and most of the second floor is there's a couple like meeting spaces. There's a couple classrooms. There's what do they call that? Quiet room or something, or a calming room. I don't know what that really means, but there was neat stuff in there. And then most of the area though is for kids to do activities, and there's a Lego, play with Legos. You get a big light bright. There's a sandbox. There's a topographical thing. There's all kinds of things to do for kids to do up on that second level. And I don't know, it was pretty cool. It was a nice event. And so the museum is now closed for about a week, she said, Becky Mitchell said, and then they're going to reopen up the upstairs area again. And then by May or June, the rest of the museum will be open. The historical part, there's some areas that are going to be open downstairs too. Like I believe the recording studio is going to be open shortly. Then they can do some other activities in one of the science rooms downstairs too. But That was pretty cool. Anything?
Well, a few days before that, I was at the building committee and there's just a lot of small stuff, that right now that no internet and it just, our local provider, just like lack of communication with their staffing and just a lot of low voltage outlets and no covers, this and that, and they hadn't been ordered. And so it just, things are really dragging out on a project and it's kind of been that way through the whole building process, but no, it's well attended. The big computer room on the second floor is not completely set up yet.
No.
Most of the equipment's in
The
there.
equipment's in there, but it's not.
And that's kind of because there's no internet service or that. Yep, it was well attended.
Yeah, it was really good. And then also too, downstairs, there will be a meeting room that is pretty much set up, ready to go. Obviously, there's no internet, so you can't use it, but they have a big screen in there that you can do all kinds of business stuff with. So there's some exciting opportunities. I mean, it's going to be a facility that's going to be used a lot, and it's not just a museum. It's a museum. It's a science area. It's a cultural area, and people can rent spaces. They can come in and do things, and school classes are going to want to go there. I mean, literally, you could take your class, elementary class there, and they could spend an entire day just doing whatever they want. But I mean, obviously, they would have an activity to learn something, and then they could use stuff. But it's really going to be interesting. It's really kind of interesting that you can do all these science projects and all these other projects, and also still learn about the history of Becker County. That's what I thought was really cool.
Remember back when I was in elementary, we came into the museum and we went down that stairway down in the back
Yeah.
to go down there, and it's dark, just a
Yeah,
dark, you're
yeah.
just like, where are we going? But yeah, this is much needed. I mean, it's been a long time coming. I know they've been working to get this museum built for 20 years now.
Yeah, I think they started the planning on 2012 or, yeah.
So, any other reports?
Yeah, Richard and I had highway committee, reviewed the ARPA requests. Some has to do with the new public works building. And, that'll be coming before us today. Also, along with that, on the ARPA request is the removal of the fueling system at the Curry Avenue shop, which was on the sale agreement, which we have to do. But there was one other one added, and that's the fuel tank up at Ponsford. I remember when we put that in as a dual wall, for some reason, it's getting water in the liner, plus it's leaking into the fuel. So
Above ground?
no, it's underground.
A dual wall underground?
Yeah, so it must have been the anode stuff on it decayed and didn't take care of it. But so now they are not able to use it. So we're going to try to sometime this summer include that in the ARPA and get that one taken care of too. So a few other things. Down on Cassaw 5 by Swanee's, a request for a ped crossing. They're gonna be looking into that, what we can do. And a lot of it is just, I think, clean up the brush that's obstructing view and on the east side of the road and
Where do they want? What was your
a
question?
pedestrian crossing.
Where?
By Swanee's.
Everybody, Swanee's there.
To go where?
From
Right
from
across
the
that bay.
east side of the road, the little bay across, if they come in a boat.
Oh,
They want to put some docks out there.
oh, well, that makes sense because I'm like, there's nothing there.
No, that's sold. now.
Yeah.
That guy's gonna change it.
Okay, well, that makes sense if they're gonna have a docking system there, then.
Some of the similar up on the north end of the lake by Hooligans, probably just
Yeah.
signing and stuff, so.
It didn't make sense though when there was nothing, there's nothing there right now.
No.
Another thing, our highway projects are gonna all bid electronically. And that'll be people really don't have to travel up here to go through the whole bidding process. They can just watch it online. They can, believe, change the bid right up to the couple minutes before the bid closing.
Mhm.
And then they can watch the opening right online, so. And also there's a request for some honorary road naming And back when we did the 220 or old Trunk Highway 225 there, Osage to Ponsford, we set a policy and we put a lot of work in that. Barry, you remember that? So we just want to make sure things kind of conform to that, or we could have a lot of,
It's a very high standard.
yeah.
It's a very, very high standard to name a road. So, I mean,
So-
they have an honorary title.
And a lot of it, just like, old residents that lived on that road for years and years and they passed and somebody wants to,
Are you talking renaming township?
no, it's be a county road.
Oh, okay.
So not a township, but
Good.
so they're looking into that. And I guess if it conforms to our policy, I have no issue with it, but it'll be coming back to highway again to discuss. So the rest of the stuff was on the agenda today.
Okay. Anything else?
Covered museum. About it, other than negotiations and finance. Okay.
So I just had highway with John. I don't have anything to add to that. And I had EDA with Erica. Just one thing that we had some money left over that we'd give for
Oh, yeah.
childcare. And so we couldn't give it away. We're trying to get childcare, more childcare here.
And I think they
so-
were gonna come present. I don't
Yeah.
think this meeting, maybe the
Is
next
it the
meeting.
next meeting? So we talked about giving them that money so that they can give it away there, so we're trying to do whatever we can there.
One thing that she did say when she presented to us last week was that we're drawing attention all around the state with what we're doing with the childcare grant, or with what they're doing with the foundation. So it sounded like it was a really positive thing.
And then the only other thing I had was we did have a head gasket go out in one of our environmental trucks. And that's not big news, but it's $22,000 for anybody that knows about, for a head gasket. And I was shocked about that, and I actually called around a little bit to see if that was accurate, and I guess that it might be.
They're actually, in that 22,000, I believe it was a little bit more work than just the head gaskets. Once you have to do that,
Well, it could go to 45
yeah.
if they, yeah, and it is a lot of work. Of course, these engines, it used to be, you could just, take the head off them. Now there's a lot of stuff to get to them, but it just, it's.
Yeah, they're packed in pretty tight.
They are. So, and
Those are a little bit more because it's a cab over style.
Mm.
yeah, it's just a lot of money. 20 years ago, you could overhaul the truck for 5,000 or 6,000. And so it's just.
How old is the truck?
It's a 2012, so.
Yeah, these trucks are huge dollars.
Mhm,
that-
mhm.
To get them set up how we need them, it's.
So that's all I have.
Okay, the only other thing I want to mention is Becker Bay. If you haven't got your contribution into Becker Bay, to get it in there and then start bidding on it. Becker Bay is a fundraising from the county that everyone donates. Everyone that wants to donate an item can donate an item, and then anyone can bid on those items, and all the funds made from that are donated to the food pantry. So it's 100% donated items from employees and commissioners and those around, and whatever we get, we donate and have a nice, our goal is to raise just over $2,000. Is it 2023? And we usually raise a couple $1,000s every year, so.
They'll take cash too.
Yeah, so if you don't want to, we can put cash, there's a cash option to just donate on the website too, so.
Are we donating?
Each individual commissioner can decide that on their own. I donated a gift card to the pit and then a little medallion from the centennial from the state of Minnesota from 1958, a keychain, so.
I did a gift card plus, I don't know how many pints of my maple syrup.
Okay,
Mm.
so. Any appointments?
Yes, Commissioner, we've had a Board of Adjustments at large position open for a while. I'd like to nominate Larry Knutson to fill that position.
Do we take a second on that or?
I think we have in the past.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by John, second by Richard. Any discussion? I think Larry would, with his knowledge, would be a real good candidate for that.
Yeah, I think so.
So any other discussion?
Uh,
Wait, we have to vote on this.
oh, okay, yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is that a partial term then to fill out? We'll have to check on that to make sure. the
Yeah,
term-
I just trying to think, I know Kyle updated me a while ago and then I kind of put it in the back burner and then I surfaced again on.
Okay, any other appointments?
I want to appoint Dave Blumenkist back on the planning commission.
Okay,
Second.
Right.
I was gonna vote.
okay, any discussion or all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Any other appointments?
Commissioner, I just, someone had raised their hand. I don't know if you want to entertain whatever that person was.
I'm sure, John. What committee are you filling?
John appointed Larry Knutz, or we voted Larry Knutson on Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustments.
And,
Commissioner or at large.
Yeah, we just didn't catch the appointment.
and
Okay.
Richard, Dave Bloomseth was reappointed to Planning and Zoning.
Thank you.
Okay, no more appointments. We'll move on to County Administrator Report.
Yeah, much of it you've covered, but I'll just cover a few items that I think are of importance. A few programs that we've talked about earlier that we've received funds from, the first one being the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. That's about 86,000 per year in 2022 and then in 2023. That's something we'll need some board direction on what we would use those funds for. The only thing we can't use those funds for is lobbying. So I'm not sure if the board would like to take that through some type of committee review, but that funding is out there and available and can be used.
Do we have to say, report back to what it was used for?
I looked at the reporting requirements. There isn't much for reporting requirements. And I've talked to other administrators. They've indicated once you've received it, it's pretty much do as you please with it. But lobbying is a no-no. So
We should earmark it for something.
I agree. Yeah.
Um,
And I'm not sure if you'd like to take it through a committee or what, but I thought I'd make you aware of it.
Do you think we should, just to put it towards something, the impound building might be a good,
Well, that's part of it. And then we originally had a sale about a whole minimum security too, that
right, but if we at least earmark it for that's where the money was spent, then then we can report it. If it ever is a reporting requirement, it's done and we establish that's where it's went to. And that's a county-wide need. It's not,
And I'll just continue opioid funding. Of course, that's going to be going on for a number of years. At the last Human Services Committee, I think both commissioners indicated an interest to be on their strategic committee for funding. This is something that the department head and the public health supervisor would like. I don't think we need any motion for it, but I wanted to make sure the board's aware of it. So as they attend those, they should, appropriately get mileage and per diem for that.
10-year payment.
17 years. Yeah. Yep. So it didn't get mentioned, so I wanted to mention that now. The dental grant, again, that's a pass-through for a regional dental program. I know we received communication from the dental group that they're focused now on, they looked at Detroit Lakes, they looked at Frazee. They're really focused now on Frazee, but they've indicated that, and that's fine. They said it isn't an issue if you mention that publicly, but there's a lot more to go with regards to funding requests and things like that. I know they have a regular meeting scheduled. The next one is March 15th at 1 p.m. They do have a Zoom link. I'm not sure if a particular commissioner would like to get invites for that moving forward, especially knowing now that they are focused on Frazee. I thought I would just share that with the board and get a response on if someone wanted to sit in on that, or should I just send the link out to all of you? And if there's 3 of you, of course, we'd have to post it.
I wouldn't mind getting a meeting invite.
yeah, send it out to me.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the early childhood welfare grant that came out of the EDA. They will be coming to the next board meeting as discussed. One of the things that did get brought up at the EDA meeting was we're very interested in understanding the application process. If we are going to be funding a project, What are the rules that someone has to follow? What happens if they're not able to meet the requirements? Is there a clawback? So I've asked that group when they come at the next board meeting to have some kind of formal structure so the board can appreciate that they're thinking outside the box there in that regard. The EDA house visit, like I said, we will have a special board meeting to discuss the house. Both Commissioner Verberg and I were there yesterday to tour the house, as you know, and a couple other individuals. And so hopefully we'll have some recommendations that'll come out of the EDA. You all received email communication about that tribal meeting. I know two of you have agreed to be on, I guess, the ad hoc committee, Commissioner Oakson and Jepson, but all of you got an email invite. If anyone beyond the two want to go, it's fine, but I'd need to post it 3 days prior. So my understanding, guys, were acceptable to the two commissioners, but since all five of you got an email, I felt I should just mention that. If you did want to attend, I would just like to know so we could post it. Continuing, and that meeting is scheduled for March 2nd, I think at 10 a.m.
Yep.
And at tribal headquarters. We did get a request from the executive director of the new historic museum about insuring the building, having the county insure the building. I have reached out to MCIT to request quotes. I went through all the material and the history of the relationship. I mean, we do own the building as a county. Normally, when you own a building and let's say you lease it to someone or have someone occupy it, usually have them pay a triple net lease, which includes insurance. We're doing that now in the old highway building. We're paying that, which includes insurance. But the request was made, so I did reach out for a quote. I don't have that yet, but I expect to have it this week. And I'm just curious, the board this has history beyond me, but I did go through the file and any concerns or questions about the MCI or having MCIT take on that insurance role on behalf of the county for that building.
Well, I think Becky was just really reaching out to see if MCIT would give them a better rate to pay.
Yeah.
Not that the county would probably pay it, but would help her bottom line.
Bargaining unit negotiations, I know we have a closed session discussion, but I'll just let everyone know publicly, we've had second and third round negotiations with the bargaining units. Many of them are coming to a conclusion, but I'll give a more detailed discussion of strategy during closed session. As you know, you did get an email on the 2022 budget reconciliations. What we do is we meet with each department head and go through their 2022 budget, lessons learned, identify where we've gone over, where we can improve things. And I'll certainly bring a summary to the board or to the committee level if there's an interest in that. I would remind the board every month I meet with department heads for 2023 budget, and they do bring their budget and we go through each of the budgets monthly to make sure if there's something that goes over a line item or under a line item, we're preparing for it and we're trying to mitigate it and address it. Airport committee, I sat in on that because Commissioner Oakson had asked me to. The airport committee did complete the airport fuel bids. It does appear that we'll be getting a request, an invoice for $200,000. That would be our match component to the bid. Of course, the city would be coming up with their portion as well, and then there's a federal grant that goes with it. We've got a number of ideas of where we could draw the funds from, but I guess we'll wait for the invoice to come in and get some direction from the board and provide some recommendations on that. You guys already mentioned, because of the weather, both AMC and MRC are both virtual, so I'll send you those links. And then I think the only other thing I just want to bring up as an idea, because it has been talked about, is doing work sessions and things like that. I wanted to remind the board there are a number of rural counties, quite a few actually, 10, 15, 30, I haven't kept the exact count, that do something called a committee of the whole meeting. It's a WHOLE meeting. And what it is, it's a third meeting, but it's an informal meeting. You can't take action on anything, but it gives you the opportunity to have all the commissioners there and all department heads there. And traditionally, they all vote, and they vote to put things on the agenda. It also gives the department heads the ability to present what they'd like to bring forward on the agenda. I just throw that out as an idea, because I know there's been discussion about having department heads be involved, and we've talked about this with policies and things like that. That might be something for the board to consider. And there's other things to do in having informal meetings after the board meeting like we're going to do today. But I just want to bring it up as a kind of a standard thing that I would say about 20, 25 rural counties participate in. And those, I think I got everything. So
Just something to add to the airport. We did discuss it briefly in finance. What I would like to see, or at least examine the possibility, is to maybe we bond, or maybe we supply that initial upfront money, but that 200,000 get paid back to the county and increase your fuel costs. I mean, I don't know that we should be subsidizing that fuel cost, but that's one of the options we want to look at to, I don't know, call it I mean, every gallon paid for by the end product should probably have a fee back to pay for that system instead of, I don't see why.
Yeah, President, working on a new agreement with the manager out there, which is private, on increasing the amount of payback coming back to the airport commission. So we're still working through that. There's a change in ownership of that company, so.
But if the profit goes to the private company, I don't know why we would subsidize that. To my opinion. Anyone else or Pat, do you want to move on to your next item?
again, yeah, so resolution 0223 2L, I think that's an L, is on the agenda for a fund transfer authorization. If you look at the resolution, the sale of the building, of the old highway building, in the amount of $839,537 was receipted in the general fund. There was also a sale of property, predates me, but the remnant of the jail parcel that was sold for $269,484.50. And this was discussed at Highway Committee about bringing those both into the highway fund, and why that's important. It will help offset the costs of the county budget, or excuse me, the county budget for the new highway building. In addition to that, we will have an ARPA request to be able to offset some costs that weren't budgeted for the highway project. So we're estimating about 1.5 million we will want to make up for that was not funded for that highway building. And by doing this and approving the ARPA request, you will have done that. And I guess I will stop, and Jim is here too to answer any questions. If you like, you want to come up, Jim. And but I know the Highway 59 predates me, so I don't know if you have any history for those individuals here.
Yeah, sure. When we started budgeting for the highway building, we were kind of looking at the hard cost of the construction. That came in about 13.6 million. Prior to that, we have been working with an architect for several years. So those are soft costs that we need to build into our budget. We examined a number of sites and a number of building scenarios. Originally was out at the jail site, and then the jail took half that property. The remnant parcel there, we still examined that, but that was just too small. So then we purchased land in the industrial park. And at that time, it was the commissioner's discussion. They thought that sale of that remnant parcel would offset some of the cost of purchasing an industrial site. So that's why we're bringing that in now. That wasn't done before. And other than that, obviously the sale of the highway building is the highway asset, and that was always planned to use to offset those costs. But when you look at total hard costs and then totaling up the soft costs of the architects, some of the land purchases or the testing services and things like that. And with our ARPA request now, we're coming in with more soft costs of furniture, security systems, and things like that. We need to cover all those costs, which were always tracked kind of along the lines, but we just hadn't fully budgeted and figured out exactly where all those costs are coming from. And we're kind of making the whole budget complete now with all our funding sources.
So what's in front of us is 2L is pretty much,
Sorry,
It's-
it is 2I.
2I. 2I is just transferring that, those sales funds got into the general fund. We want to put them back to the highway fund to pay for the building. So this is just a bookkeeping thing. And that'll get us close. I think we should probably get a better, written format of where we are in all the costs and where we are short. Did you look at the gravel tax? Did that get moved over?
Gravel tax.
Gravel tax should have paid for the one road last year, and I don't think it did.
Yes, that needs to be transferred. Yeah, and if you recall, we did gravel tax to prep the site where the jail is and the highway. We used a portion of that, and then in last year's 5-year plan budget, we had gravel tax paying for that 145 project,
Right.
a portion of that.
Okay.
So
Entertain a motion to approve 1I.
So moved.
Motion by John,
Second.
second by Richard. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Aye for aye. Okay, thank you.
And ARPA review, the first thing I'd like to look at is page 11, which is the resolution 04221, and you approved that back in April 5th of 2022. And what you approved there is because of the amount of money is under 10 million, it allowed us to go to what's called a interim rule to a final rule. And what that does is it minimizes a lot of the audit requirements that we have. It also, if you look at the fourth whereas in that final rule, it gives direction on what you can use these funds for. To a point, it's really about internal government funding, and it lists it's not an exhaustive list, but it lists quite a bit of examples. But then it also says for school and educational services and for police, fire, and other public safety services. The reason we wanted to add that to it is when we do look at projects that are external projects, let's say someone that isn't part of our government structure that applies, we're not able to directly fund them, but we are able to fund when we use ARPA to replace certain budget items that we've already budgeted for, we can use then those funds. And so there is a strategy and a way to do it. And the reason that we focused on internal projects and the board directed us to do that is because it's a much easier thing to implement. But we eventually are going to want to look at some external projects, but we have to be very strategic on how we use them. And so I thought it was important, since this was passed prior to two of the commissioners, that we just revisit that. And so you could kind of see the path and the structure that we have to follow. And if there are no questions on that, we'll just move on to ARPA review. I'm not going to go through the whole sheet again because we just did that 2 weeks ago. But I know Amanda's going to bring the sheet up, and I just was going to focus on 2 items. One of those items is what's on page 12, and that is a highway department list. And in that list, a good share of what's on that list, and there's a total of 489,200 in items. Most of those items are geared towards the new building, but a couple that have already been referenced, the underground fuel tank removal, the Pondford shop fuel tank replacement are additional items. And then, of course, the floor scrubber for the new Public Works building isn't the capital project, but for the building, but certainly for equipment. And this was reviewed through the Highway Committee as well. And if you look at the screen there's only 2 things I have in orange. One is the Highway 1 that's up there, and of course that references this sheet here. And then we have a sheriff's trailer that we are bringing as well. What you'll be having coming in the future is Human Services has got a list that did go through the Human Services Committee that will be brought to you. I think there was we'll be working on some estimates and before we bring that, but our anticipation is to bring it to you at the next board meeting. I would say after you approve this amount of money, we probably will have funded out of the 6.5 million that we have, just a little under 3 million that has been set aside. There were 2 external ones that you have approved. When I say external, meaning not direct government, and that is the 4-H building and the fair, and then also the food pantry. And so right now, I won't go through that whole sheet because you've already seen it before, but the 2 things that are on for discussion at first is the highway building and, the highway recommendations. And again, it's gone through the Highway Committee, and I will just stop talking and see if you have any questions.
As we have the list before us, I know those numbers are just estimates. So with those, are you looking for just a kind of general consensus that these will be ARPA money? And then when the bids come in or when the quotes come in or bids for these items, then we accept them then?
Yeah, I know we've kind of estimated on the high end, right, Jim? And do you have any new information? You can please come up if you'd like. And
The scrubber was, I know, got a second quote for 40. So that,
We have got quotes. Some of these are solid numbers and we've already placed orders like on appliances like that. Office furniture, we received a quote, but that's a little fluid until we get into our design and kind of finalize things. So that's adjusted up slightly from that. And otherwise, only real estimate here is the underground tank removal. We're still waiting on quotes for those. We discussed this in highway committee. I assumed kind of a quote generally from our contractor at the site. I know talking with Richard, he's been through some of this, that we could see a lot better pricing on some of these quotes. So yes, some of these are on.
well, why don't you do that as they come in then to get approval? Why don't you just bring these items through board?
Sure.
But I think today we just want to, is this consensus that these will come out of the ARPA funds? Is that appropriate?
be helpful, ma'am.
I think it's appropriate. Even if we had, I mean, I would like to see a kind of a budget, a full budget of the building to see where we are with if we still have a shortfall or not. But I think with the $1 million here and I think we should be close. And so then if this money is actually kind of cleaning some that we can move to other places, or if we use the whole thing for ARPA, it will be at our discretion. So, but is that appropriate for
I think the 489,200 is the estimate, and we worked down when the invoices come in. The landscaping, that is already a bid.
It is, yes.
That's
Yep.
secure, so.
But being they're coming from the county and ARPA funds, I think they come back to the board then for approval then for
Yeah.
payment.
Sure.
Well, I was just going to add, we did have an internal staff meeting before we went through highway and finance and came to the board on the county building budget and where the shortfall is. We should be able to get that information, and email out to you this week or today. I mean, we've had a lot of discussion about it. So we do feel this, along with the approvals you already made, pretty much takes care of that, unless there's some other engineering change orders or cost overruns to address the shortfall.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, the construction won't be complete until, June-ish, but we're not anticipating anything big, but there's probably small changes here and there.
I think we're fortunate. We have state aid funds that we could always go through to get that, but so I think that discussion would help a better overview, especially when we got some additional federal funding for Westlake last year, or
Correct, we did, yep.
so that was about what, 1 point?
Yeah, about 1.2, I believe.
I don't know if you recall that, but last year when the state couldn't finalize their bonding or their budget, that pass-through money came right from the federal government to the county because the state couldn't find their bills. So we were in benefit of about a $1.2 million additional grant that we weren't really expecting to finish Westlake Drive. So it was good that we did do that in a timely manner, even though we did have some headaches with that road, but it's going to be a good project when it's done.
Yep.
Do we need a motion just to approve the item list, and then as the invoices come in, we'll adjust them?
I would like to see the quotes though, I mean, in some of these to see, but I
Well,
think
I think the quotes, when you get the final quotes, then you bring them forward, but this is just an item list that they can secure quotes on. And
they probably should read then, we move forward with the list as ARPA funds to be paid for by ARPA funding, if that's appropriate. Pat, is that accurate? Okay.
we'll move.
Motion by John, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Finance. Mary, I'd appreciate if you'd get on schedule.
Are we behind? Okay, let's see. The first item that we have is finance minutes, requesting a motion to approve regular claims, auditor warrants, and over 90 days.
So move.
Motion by John.
Second.
Second by Richard. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, Motion carries.
I believe everything else is on the agenda, so we'll move on to the license renewal list. First, I have 3-2 on-off renewal for Cedar Crest Resort. They also have wine and strong beer for Cedar Crest Resort, both in Maple View Township, Maple Grove Township.
Let's just do them individually.
Okay.
The 3-2, entertain a motion to approve the 3-2 on-off sale for 3 for Cedar Crest Resort, 3-2 on-off sale renewal.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Dave,
Second.
second by Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Renewal of wine and strong beer to Cedar Crest. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Dave,
Second.
second by John. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Club on sale to renewal for Frazee Golf Course.
So moved.
John, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Erica. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. On sale with Sunday renewal to Bleachers, Hotel Shoreham, and Forest Hills.
So moved.
Motion by John,
Second.
second by Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And we have a resolution for the gambling permit. Carsonville Firefighters Relief Association, Resolution 223-2B. Entertain a motion to approve.
I motion.
Motion by Erica. Second by Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, Human Services. Morning, Denise. Okay, and that place is in Perham, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the drug testing.
Motion by Dave,
I'll second.
second by Erica. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. I Oh, I saw there was something I was reading through that and I wasn't. This is a renewal of the same last year?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, any wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Motion by John,
I'll second.
second by Dave. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay,
Move to approve.
motion by Richard to approve. I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Denise. Morning, Carrie.
Good morning. All right, just wanted to update the board that our leadership training that I've spoke about has begun. Last week was our first session with half of our leadership team here in the county, and the first session for the other half of the department heads and supervisors will be this Friday. So it is being well attended at this point, and so it has begun. My intent, next board meeting is I will bring some additional numbers for you. I had previously provided information with exit interview information and some trends. I do know that the county administrator had brought some numbers forth maybe prior to the January seating of the new board members. So I'll update the last quarter of the exiting employees and provide some additional information next round. I would ask the board to entertain a motion with regards to including Juneteenth as a holiday, incorporating that into our personnel policy manual that's been discussed previously and had been previously in the contract language if it were to pass the legislature that the county would support that that holiday as well for county employees.
Do you have wordage that you would like to be specific on?
I just included in the personnel policy manual, just including the date as a additional recognized holiday.
Okay,
Adding one additional.
entertain that
Yeah,
as a
So moved.
motion. Motion by John,
I'll second that.
second by Dave. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
And the last item that I have today is the employee recognition that has been in the works. Peggy from our office has been doing the planning for that. So that is scheduled for March 7th, following the board meeting, with the intent of planning for roughly 60 people with supervisors and department heads and then the board. We are.
Hey, can you, tell?
Testing, you're
Nikki
on
that she can
live.
Go ahead
someone.
and,
There you
There'll be roughly 41 employees recognizing by 5-year increments. And again, Peggy has done most of the legwork with that, so that is ready to go. Hoping that she'll be sending out a save the date for employees that will impact or not impact, but that will be recognized. So that's all I have.
Okay. So is that acceptable to the board? We do that after the board meeting at our next meeting to recognize the
Mhm.
employees that have 5-year increments.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. It.
Good morning.
Morning, Judy.
Today, the IT department has our big contract renewal up for renewal. And probably the biggest thing is that a couple of things that we're doubling the internet speed, going up $10 a month on a couple of things. Local service fees have gone down from 188 to 145. And our special circuits is just, there's no change, and it goes up 3 years. It was recommended by the Finance Committee to approve this, so that's what the memorandum is asking for.
Move to approve the Harvard contract renewal.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Richard. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Good morning,
Morning, Todd.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. First item I have is Resolution 2H. We're applying for a Department of Corrections remote electronic alcohol monitoring grant.
And as we discussed in committee, this is something that we already do, and we're just trying to get some reimbursement from the state from that. So entertain a motion to approve.
So moved to H.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Resolution 2C, approval and purchase request for a snowmobile. We have a 1998 snowmobile that we use for our rescue sled. And after 25 years, we feel that it's time to upgrade the snowmobile. Still works, but obviously it's quite old. We want something that we can again upgrade to that. This is for anybody that's out in the field that we cannot get to with other vehicles. We have money in our budget along with the rest of the snowmobile grant, sale of the snowmobile, and some forfeited funds that we'll use to offset those costs.
Have you guys chose a snowmobile?
We did.
What'd you choose?
It's the Polaris 650.
Okay. Have you looked at these utility ones, the wide track? Because and if you guys are gonna use it I would look at that because I now have one. And it's what they would use out in the mountains. And Polaris makes one. Yamaha, they all make them. But it's unbelievable how you can get off, you can stop in a swamp that where it's 3 feet deep and get off and sink to here, get back on and take off. So if you know, I would look at that. I'm just saying, it's something I've been using now for the last couple of years for fishing, and it's unbelievable compared to a regular snowmobile. So for something like you're doing, it'd be really something.
I think we did add photos of the one that we're looking at. Should be in the packet.
What is the one, what do you have? What is it?
I got a Yamaha Viking, and I really like that one because it's so light. It's the old 550 fan cooled that Yamaha's made for years. It's extreme. It's just, and it's
It's a
something else.
wide track then?
It's a wide track. Most tracks, I believe, are 15 inches. This is 21. There's 151 inches of track, and it's just it just changes everything. I don't care if you're in the slush. I have a really big fish house, and we were in water this deep, and I go as fast. I'm just telling you, I've had a lot of different, and this is something new to me, and it's really something special if you're in those kind of conditions, and if you're going to be looking for people who are doing, off the trail type of stuff for a trail machine. And I'm not sure what you're talking about there. I'm just so amazed by it.
Mhm.
Like, the discussion in Sheriff too, is I kind of said that same concept, but what they're pulling is a really light rescue, just a sled to pull people in and out. But that did discussion. John, you might have something to add to that, or?
No, I think Shannon said that, I think you got a picture of the sled. It's very light, and I don't know, if you looking at like Richard was saying, the other style, that might put you out another year to get it ordered,
Yeah.
but it's an option.
And then one thing we were looking at is getting away from the fan cool, just because some of of course, our season can go into the 40-degree mark or higher. Whereas a liquid cooled will be much better than that. But
Then
It's
Polaris got to have that one in liquid. Charlie bought that one, and that's liquid cool. The Polaris was.
Okay.
It just had it's got towing options on both ends. It's just for utility. If you guys were in a jam, it's more of a work thing, and they've really come a long way. And I don't know if you would get one or not.
I don't think you get one this year.
That's another thing, but Yamaha did have some carryovers. They had the big liquid too. So when I was looking at mine, there were some that were a couple years old that, there's not a lot of people look at these. They're not something you want to go riding down the trail on. They're wide.
The other important thing on this one is with pulling, this has got a track that's called the ripper track, that's got the studs embodied in the track.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you're on icy, especially like an icy trail, if you're trying to pull anything, I think that's essential to have that type of track. But
Yeah, and I'm just making a comment on it because
Mhm.
it surprised me how well it does compared to the snowmobiles I've had in the past with 15-inch track.
the grant cycle does end June 30th. And after that, we go to a different grant cycle. Just something to consider also. And I know this sled is in stock right now. It would take a couple days. They would have to switch the track, but I was told that it would take a couple days for that. But
we also need to replace those fan cooleds too. So I think we're going to be coming back. So that's maybe something we want to look at, that we can move this one back into patrol or whatever. But given the age of this one, it's something that we do need to get rid of now. Just the age of that thing. It's an old sled. So especially for the reliability, and I mean, tracks and everything starting to wear out now, with just that old a sled, the rubber and everything starts to get brittle and whatnot. So, but I think that's something we definitely need to look at. So.
I kind of would recommend moving forward with what we have in front of us today, and then as we get our next sled, maybe looking at swapping this into a patrol one, and then getting a utility.
Some information that I didn't have before.
yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, that's kind of where I was looking. If you're pulling, if it's a utility for pulling, but
Well, they have low, so they,
yeah,
you know, low and high. I mean, normal snowmobiles don't have that.
Right.
They're just really,
I did, the sled though it's very light. It's a very light trailer that they pull behind it on skis, so. And that's trailer should be looked at updating to it.
Yes, we are looking at
That's
that.
about 50-year-old trailer on it, so,
There's a grant opportunity on that, so.
okay. So wishes of the board on the sale of the old snowmobile.
I'll make a motion to see.
A motion by John,
second.
second by Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
I'm gonna abstain from voting.
Is this the purchase also?
Yeah, it's
Does this?
Yes.
Does it,
sale on purchase and that,
Yes.
I believe in that resolution, so.
And the low quote is also in front of you. 15,295.
okay, do we need a motion to be specific on that, or do you want to include that in the resolution, the low quote? It just says a 20 and to reap that with a purchase of a 23. Do you want, we should have the dollar amount in there. That comes from grant funds. Or,
Yeah, we can update that.
so we want to update the resolution to include the price of, what was the, not 15, what?
The lowest quote we have is 15,295.
Okay, and that's from Okeson Off Trail,
Yes,
and that is for a 23 players 650 Indy. Probably just include
Correct.
that. Is that acceptable? We made them, is that acceptable for everyone?
You can amend the resolution or.
Okay, let's be a friendly amendment, just added on the resolution then. Everyone agrees on it, and John did abstain from voting on that. Just note that, John abstained. Okay? So we got that done, the purchase and the sale of that. And that will go on a public auction locally, so we can
correct.
get the highest value.
Have you chosen which site you're gonna go on?
No, we also thought about just going out and accepting bids.
That's an option too.
Yeah.
I like the public auction, and I mean, you got Audubon and some, you just have the local ones, and it just makes, everyone sees it's transparent. It's not, no one's giving their friend a deal on a low bid that doesn't get.
You always got that last minute, if you want it bad enough, you can add a few more bucks.
Yep,
We did the four-wheeler through a public auction, so we'll do the same.
okay. Trailer request.
Number 3, Resolution 2G is a request for an emergency management trailer. This is one that, since we've assumed the emergency management responsibilities with the sheriff's office, we would use this trailer to go directly to the on-site where it's needed. The cost for that is $29,650, and that low quote is Northern Sales and Manufacturing. And we had talked about in committee using ARPA funds for this request.
All right. Wishes of the board.
I think we had a lot of questions and Shane got clarification on make sure everybody was quoting the same type of equipment, and I was looking for one last night, and I think it had to do with the Arctic installation, and I see they both have that. Oh, which makes quite a difference in using in the wintertime. Floor is insulated well, and
I mean, if you go with the concept that this is something that's needed and usable in the county, we can nitpick about what each individually we want all day long. Because there's things in there that I would say, oh, we need this or we don't need this, but I'm going to trust the sheriff's department to say what they think they need the most, because it wouldn't be exactly how I would order it, but I'm not going to be using it. So I'm leaving that up to you guys. The general concept of the trailer itself, I think is reasonable, so. Wishes of the board.
I'll move 2G ARPA request for EM trailer.
Motion by John.
Second.
Excuse me, second by Richard, and that was for the amount of 29,650.
Yeah, and that should probably add it to the resolution too.
Okay, with that dollar amount. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries.
And lastly is the personnel request for seasonal Bolton Water employees.
Move to D.
Motion by John,
Second.
second by Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Commissioner
Number
Rogers?
5,
Yeah, excuse me. I had sent you a text. Are you ready for that?
That's fine,
Oh,
yeah.
please proceed there, sorry.
We have a grant opportunity for, it actually came through us for, or to us for auto theft related investigations. We don't fit some of the criteria. So what we're looking at is requesting 5,000 for night vision. I can't think of, there's a couple different types, but the total cost of that is 6,600. And we're looking for approval to apply. That grant has to be in, I think, this week.
Yeah, it'd be little over 5,000 per unit. It was a minimum $5,000 request on that for the equipment side of things. I got some new quotes yesterday, sorry, I didn't update.
Okay.
There's, yeah, the equipment portion of that is the only part that we qualify for. Thankfully, we don't have enough auto thefts here to qualify for some of the other stuff, so, but it did require that at some point there's full board approval for that grant, but it sounds like that's on the execution of the grant. So just looking for approval to apply at this point, and then down the road, if we're awarded that, get a resolution to accept that.
okay. Entertain a motion to
So moved.
approve to apply for a grant.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by John, second by Dave to authorize the sheriff's warrant to apply for the grant. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries.
We do have auto thefts here, but yeah. Thankfully, it's not like some other places. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Shane. Jim.
Highway's looking for a motion to approve resolution 2A, awarding bid in the amount of $1,635,024.95 to Mark Sand and Gravel. We opened bids last week. We had 3 bidders, all came in very competitively. The winning bid is just slightly over our engineer's estimate, so we are recommending approval.
Move to A.
Motion by John,
Second.
second by Richard. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Jim.
Jim, any dates set for the next bid letting, like 21/6? No.
I can't remember offhand, but
Oh, you get something set, send it to me. I'm getting
sure.
queries about it, so.
Okay.
Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board
Morning.
members, Pat, Amanda. We have 2 items before you today. Resolutions 02-23-2E, which is awarding a solid waste hauler's license number 29 to 5 Star Disposal. And then resolution 02-23-2F, which is accepting a grant for purchase seedlings and replace seedlings, tree seedlings that were from the drought. Any questions?
I'll move to E.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Richard to approve 2E, license for 5 Star Disposal hauler license. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And the grant for tree seedlings. 2F, entertain a motion to approve 2F.
Move to approve.
Motion by Richard,
I'll second.
second by Erica. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I think we should take a couple minute break. Get set up for the presentation. That works. We'll take just a couple minutes to get some refreshments or relief of refreshments? Relief. Okay, looks like we're all back.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have Lance Bernard here with me today from HKGI.
Can you say the name again?
Lance Bernard with HKGI. As a few of you are aware, we've been having a comp plan discussion for some time. Actually began, I think, pre-COVID, but with the pandemic and everything, our presentation kind of got put off, but Lance had offered back then to come up and see if we were interested in submitting some type of process. Obviously, we have to go up for an RFQ or RFP, but he just offered to come up and show us some of the benefits of a comp plan, some areas we'd like to update, the purpose. Other than that, I think I'm going to hand it off to him.
I do have a presentation, and I will be respectful of your time. I love to talk, but appreciate the opportunity to be in front of the board today. As Kyle mentioned, my name is Lance Bernard. I'm a planner. I live and breathe these type of comprehensive plans in more rural settings. And so just a little bit about myself. In the last 5 years, I've helped lead the Stearns County, Sherburne County, Benton County, Kennebec County Comprehensive Plan updates and some of their zoning ordinance revisions to coincide with their comp plan as well. And currently working in Carver County on some asset management plan work. So started my career off as a county planner in Anoka County as a transportation planner in the public works department. So have about 20 years of experience in the public and private sector. So next slide. I think really what I wanted to just offer today is some thoughts and some ideas and lessons that we've learned in our comprehensive planning process for you guys to consider if you choose to kind of move forward with an update in your comprehensive plan, and then just offer some bigger things that we've been tackling in other counties and certainly in more rural setting type counties. Next slide, please. So yeah, we can skip this. We're a smaller firm. We truly, again, enjoy working more in rural settings. So we do a lot of our work in more of the rural suburban parts of greater Minnesota. What makes us really unique is we do have a lot of expertise in our house that deal with zoning, day-to-day planning work. So we are actually serving as day-to-day planners in some communities. So we really understand what it means to tackle those development reviews and ordinance revisions and variance requests and so forth. Next slide, please. So given our experience in comprehensive planning, we know that, the county currently has a comprehensive plan. It's about 20 years old. Typically in the counties we work in, and best practices really suggest those plans are updated every 10 years to really help reaffirm your goals and your direction that you're going over the next 20 years and really make sure that it's meeting the needs of the county. So that really gives you a good solid foundation to really articulate those goals and visions. And then really it helps really set the solid framework and foundation for informing other updates to your zoning ordinances and codes as well. So it is really meant to be a guiding document. It's a tool that really can be useful for elected leaders like yourselves, other boards and staff to really help guide and inform decisions when it comes to ordinances or other investments in the county. Next slide, please. Don't need to go through all the statutes, but certainly the county has the right and the authority to adopt a comprehensive plan. What's unique about this county is you're not required, like the 7-county metro area. The 7-county metro area is required to do this every 10 years. So that also comes with other kind of rules and regulations and how you approach your update. There are certain things that you would need to kind of follow and be mindful of, but you really can shape a comprehensive plan that fits your needs and really tailor something that really meets your needs and doesn't necessarily need to go through a very kind of required process like the 7-county metro. Next slide, please. So knowing that you guys have a comprehensive plan established, as I mentioned before, it really is can be a very useful document, something that you guys should think and consider about updating over the to kind of reflect existing changes and trends. Certainly a lot has changed in the last 5 years, and it's really a good opportunity to kind of reevaluate a lot of the policy areas and a lot of direction that you guys have in that plan now. So it really can cover a broad spectrum of topics or issues that you want it to address, and really then make sure it's clear on how you're trying to tackle those topic areas. So the plan now and certain things that you may want to consider, certainly aggregate resources, feedlots, just lot sizes in the rural areas. How are you balancing the flexibility of property owner rights as they want to maybe do something different with their land? Solar, wind, another very hot topic for many counties that are tackling these and are typically started to be addressed in their comprehensive plans as well. So I could go on all the things that you could tackle in your comprehensive plan, and that's really kind of up to the county board and others on really what you want to address as part of this update. But really, the heart of the comprehensive plan is really setting that framework for land use decisions and how do we guide and inform what property owners can do within their properties and throughout the various parts of the county, and how do you best work with your townships to make those decisions as well. And then that really helps inform updates and sets, again, that framework for other implementation processes for zoning, capital investment programs, and so forth. And next slide, please. So there's a number of different processes you can really kind of unfold to get to that final update. Typically, from our approach, it really does require at least a year process, and that really means you're meeting with your stakeholders, having workshops like we are today in front of the county board, and really kind of walking through the big things and making sure we're really articulating policies and ideas accordingly in this plan. So we typically start the process very early on, really understanding what those issues are, listening, doing a lot of data research, what's happening in the county from a market perspective, whether it's housing, agriculture, farming, or so forth, and then kind of building into some of those bigger topic areas and how that data and what we're hearing from the community shapes some of those new policies and the direction that the county wants to go. And then wrapping up with an adoption process near kind of a year process. From our experiences, what we've learned too is you kind of create that momentum with the comprehensive plan and then lead right into some bigger ordinance updates. So we've done that recently in Stearns and Benton County, where we adopted the plan, and literally the next day we're working on some ordinances for various topic areas. Next slide, please. So really that year-long process really can drive a lot by kind of the level of engagement you want to have by your townships and community members. And so we do really encourage the board and others to think about what that process would look like. It is a great opportunity to just get people excited and talking about things and what's going on in the county and how we best address that. So we've got a number of different public engagement strategies we use to really get people involved. What we've really learned more in kind of the rural, bigger county settings is we spend more time doing listening sessions with townships and sitting down with their town boards and just walking through things, workshops with the county board and other advisory committees, working with the chambers. Just last week, I was in Sherburne County, and we had 75 farmers show up. We had a very specific farmer agricultural listening session to understand what their issues are and how we best support them as they look to thrive in the county as well. So various opportunities there. Another strategy, next slide, is just being flexible. We're using a lot more online platforms to attract more attention to the comprehensive plan and get input. More and more of the general public's interacting online as well. So a number of tools there that we can use. Next slide. I think what's really important, be very specific in your ask, really be, upfront of what you're trying to accomplish as part of this comprehensive plan. And that certainly comes with some challenging conversations. And we've got tough skin to go through to get through those challenging conversations. And so a lot of times it really is focused around land use and property owners and what they're allowed to do with their property and where are we and how are we trying to regulate some of those uses. So be specific, have the honest and hard conversations, and we're there to help support those conversations. And as I said, this is what we live and breathe, and we know how to navigate those difficult conversations. Next strategy. So there are a lot of different themes, a lot of different trends, a lot of things happening in this state and in this region, and certainly more that are relevant to this county versus others. So really, let's tailor a plan that fits your guys' needs. We're not trying to take a boilerplate plan and just copy and paste. This is about setting the direction for you guys. So start to think about what that plan looks like, what you really want to address, what are some of those trends that you're dealing with. Having talked to county staff over the last year, certainly some of the hot topic things coming in front of you are feedlots, aggregate mining, solar, wind. So I would envision this plan tackling some of those topics. Next strategy, please. we want to leverage a lot of data. There's a lot of good data out there that we can help inform our decisions. We just want to, reflect on that. So we're being proactive in planning for new markets, new changes in housing demands and so forth, which I'll touch on here in a minute. We can go to the next slide. So given our experience throughout this region and throughout the state, there's a lot of things that we're tackling. I've kind of mentioned a number of those. I think one of the big general themes as you look at this list has really been tackling the flexibility. How much flexibility are we offering throughout the county on these various topic areas or policy areas? So in that respect, when we think about land use planning, we're talking about the flexibility for property owners. Do we want to allow or increase the flexibility to have a home extended business or having that accessory dwelling unit on that site? That's something that Stearns County worked on, where as we got through that process in the ag areas, they said we would like to open the door for more housing opportunities in the agricultural areas. And they were able to work through that process, get to an ordinance that now allows for some level of workforce housing in the ag areas. And they're seeing those actually happening and develop. So it's kind of responding to what we were hearing, what the market trends were saying, and then opening up that door for more flexibility in that instance, in that case as well. So next slide. So the county is certainly changing, or demographic wise. It's still going to continue to grow in some respect from a population standpoint. And that's unique when you look at the state demographers' projections for every county throughout the state. Most counties are battling with a decrease in population or population staying stagnant. The only counties that are being projected to grow in population is certainly the 7-county metro area, the Rochester area, and in the Lakes area where you guys are today too. So that presents some questions that we would want you to consider as how do we best address some of those population increases? How do we deal with some of those demographic changes throughout the county as well? Next slide. So I don't need to belabor anything because I've kind of talked a lot about the land use perspective, but housing has certainly been the big driver in a lot of our conversations with counties. It would be interesting to work more closely with your housing authority and your EDA of just really understanding what you guys are working on towards for housing. How do we best address some of those housing needs? I think when we look at some of similar communities, counties that we've worked in with more of a tourist base, it's been a lot harder for the service industry to find housing options. And then you are also addressing a lot of Airbnb rentals, and some of that housing is getting eaten up. So it's a tricky conversation to have, but that's where we've worked a lot recently in Grand Marais and dealing with some of those more tourist based communities and how we're dealing with housing needs for more of the local community as well. Next slide as well. I guess we can kind of gloss over this just to be respectful of time, but just kind of re-emphasizing the housing piece. As we talk about flexibility, we hear more and more from property owners that are trying to open the door for more use of their land to run rural businesses, whether it's a cottage industry, landscaping business, or just working more from home. We're also seeing more of those kind of entrepreneurships happening up in the rural areas where they want to have that flexibility. So, have that conversation. What does that flexibility mean for the rural home occupation uses throughout this county? Next slide. Broadband, always going to be a hot topic. A lot of counties are tackling this. How do we provide more of that reliable internet service throughout the county as more and more people are doing business from home and working from home? So something to be aware of and where some of those broadband gaps are. But then how do you translate that infrastructure into highway investments or county road investments as well? So trying to think more strategic about when and how you can kind of maximize those investments to extend broadband to some of the areas that are lacking those internet services. Next slide. We can skip over this one. One of the other kind of things that kind of this Park Rapids area went through a big branding effort a few years ago. Through a firm that we partner with a lot when we think about kind of economic development and tourism, and really how do you market yourself as a county to be a place that people want to live, work, and play, and how does tourism fit within the grand scheme of that marketing aspect. So another thing that you could think about and consider as you think about the comprehensive plan update is really the tourism aspect from a economic development standpoint as well. Next slide. We're dealing with a lot more in the counties of people getting outside more in the park system, the trail system, and really how do we create a park system that meets those needs from a recreational standpoint as well. More and more people are interacting with their parks and trails much more differently than they were 5-10 years ago. A lot more different services and needs that they're expecting out of their parks. So how does the county park system fit into more of a regional network of systems, knowing that you also have local systems you're balancing with as well? So we're always trying to find where the gaps and overlap of park services are and how to reinvest back into the county park system to create those memorable experiences. And then next slide, as I mentioned before, wind and solar, that's on every county's mind, tackling a lot of solar ordinances and dealing with those tough conversations of what solar fields mean in the agricultural areas. So I would anticipate this update tackling that as well. And then finally, one of the last kind of trends, just reconnecting with nature. Everybody, again, kind of building on that parks trend. Everybody values the natural resources in this area. That's what creates this county unique and what people identify with. So how do we best balance land use decisions with the natural environment, shoreline management, wetland protection, you name it. Comprehensive planning at a county level typically has a very large natural resource focus. So a lot of ideas to throw out there. Kind of one of the final slides here. I think I'll just reemphasize, based on our experience, things that we encourage this board to think about is just really how has the county changed over the last 20 years since its last update? What are some of those bigger trends that we need to be cognizant of? And how do we best tackle some of those bigger topic areas? Comprehensive plans can be comprehensive in nature. You can really address a number of things, but I think what really makes a meaningful plan is getting that buy-in from your stakeholders, your township officials, and so forth, and then really coming up with a strategic plan of what you really want to work on in the next 5 years. What are you going to tackle? Because there's going to be a lot of ideas thrown at you. So what do you really want to prioritize? Because Kyle and his staff is one group, and they've got a lot of day-to-day stuff they have to tackle, and then again, let's figure out how we can make some meaningful next steps to balance staff workload and resources to make some implementation happen. So threw a lot out there. Again, I just really appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts and ideas as you guys continue your conversation moving forward with an update to your comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Lance.
Yeah.
I guess this kind of segues right into our next topic. So I noticed in your presentation, you have, ordinance and code updates. If does your company do zoning? I mean, we have some ordinances that we're trying to review now. Do you do those separately or with the same process or?
Yeah, I mean, we do both. It's really a matter of how it falls in that process. You could certainly be doing ordinance updates now that we would certainly work on, can work on. If you're just entering into a comprehensive planning process, it's kind of best to really maybe have that process first, because that really sets the foundation of why you're doing your ordinance updates. But that depends on what ordinance updates you're working on. There may be some minor ones that can certainly be tackled coinciding with the comprehensive plan process as well.
Yeah, the one we have to do immediately is the feedlot. I mean,
Yep.
we have to get that done. We have a moratorium and we may be able to extend that, but I would like to give the guidelines out there and get that complete as soon as possible, because I don't like stalling projects without reason.
Right. And I think an ordinance like that with a feedlot could certainly happen at any time. It wouldn't need to wait until after or during a comp plan process.
Then when you finish the comp plan, you can always adjust it one way or the other. I mean, if you need to.
Yeah, and you would typically adjust your comprehensive plan to align with what you just adopted for an ordinance, because you don't want those two to be in conflict and then have to go back and retweak your ordinance because something different came out. So maybe the short answer there too is we've done that process as well, where there's a comprehensive planning process that's going on. And part of that process, you're also letting the public know, hey, we're also doing this ordinance update as well. So tell us what you think about this specific topic. We'll address that very first and foremost, get through that ordinance, and then incorporate that as part of the larger comp plan update process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have, it's a big bite. I mean, these ordinance changes are big, so.
Yep.
We do, but like I'd mentioned to him earlier, I mean, we hadn't had a feedlot application since I've been here, a new one. We had an expansion north of Lake Park 3 years ago or so. But we're just one phone call away from something that will hit home just as much for somebody else, such as wind. We have had that inquiry. I mean, it's no specific location or anything like that, but it's not far away, and it could be, I mean, we could have an application before us next month and be in the same position as we were with that feedlot. Along with solar, there's lots of people that are interested in VRBOs. There's some folks from your district especially, having some issues. So as well as enforcement, and then just being consistent throughout the entire ordinance. It's been amended 30 times, let's say, by 6 different individuals with opinions as ZAs, zoning administrators. We might update chapter 7 and that conflicts with 5 not knowing. So the whole thing, I mean, it needs some help drastically. And then that would also provide structure for all of us. I think it would be just much easier to administer, and I think it'd be a huge benefit.
You're talking to contract with someone and do the comp plan.
Yes, and then
And comp
codify.
and ordinance updates.
Yep. Get that ordinance to follow that plan.
So what are we requesting today? That we move forward and put out a request for proposal or qualifications?
Yes, sir. Is that the wish?
When was our last comprehensive plan done?
2003.
3. I remember that.
You were,
I remember the year. But
you would have been part of the,
yeah, it
yeah.
was. Oh.
I was at a couple public meetings at that time. I think we should, I mean, I think like Kyle said, it's time to do the major overhaul and get everything. And I think even in your presentation, it should be maybe not the complete overhaul in 20 years, but at least updated every 10 years so you don't get so far behind. But I think, like Kyle said, we get conflicting statements within the ordinance as we continue amend one part of it that it affects another part over there. So it's got some conflicting views. So I think we should put out a request for qualifications or proposals and move forward with this, quickly. It's something that we need to give our zoning administrator some rules to make it easier job. And I don't know how many of these ordinances that we should put in front of the feedlot we should move in front. I don't know what the feelings of the board, if there's
wind and solar too, probably.
Yeah.
But even the smaller ones, I mean, it's the smaller, our past history, and I guess we don't need to get into detail on what we want to do with VRBOs, but that's a discussion for the board when we choose someone, that some of these ordinances should align quickly so we can get ahead of, I mean, it's happening so fast now, the bed and breakfast VRBOs, that we want to let people know that we're not, if this is the wish of the board, that there might be rules that you don't see right now, but they're coming. So don't buy these investment properties just for this one purpose, because it might not be financially advantageous for you. So I think we need to let that.
No, they're being marketed that way. I mean, you can go on realtor.com right now and that's the headline. It's a great VRBO investment or what have you. I see there's some individuals here with feedlot interests and not to take any weight away from that. But if you have 500 VRBOs in the county, affecting neighbors on both sides, you're affecting a lot of people. So it's also something we gotta look at.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. When we get to that point, we have to say, these are critical that need to be adjusted
right
sooner than that year, just over your timeline.
Yep.
So.
If I may, commissioners, I think one thing to just kind of note with the comprehensive planning process, typically what we're also doing is we're setting and developing that comprehensive plan. We're also scanning your ordinances and your zoning and understanding what are the things that need to be changed to align with your goals and policies. So it's another part of that process that is really working tandem with the two.
Yeah, I think I remember getting a file from our auditor when I started of all the ordinances and, it was just in a paper copy and it was quite interesting because some of those you don't even know. I mean, we have ordinances even for restricted boat usage on St. Clair Lake and that's because of the long-term, I don't want to say it, septic issues from the city that have caused some concerns out there, but, I don't know, what are we looking for today, then direction to move forward with putting out a request for proposals? And
Right. I think if the board would be interested in doing that, we could always put together an RFP and bring it to you for review before we go out. You could, certainly, many of us are not new to community-based comprehensive plans. Many of us have written them. I like the idea of going out and having an independent objective entity do it because there's a lot of public stakeholder meetings that are involved with it. And I would just leave this board with one item is, you're considered a rural county. I think it's best described Becker County as a rural county on steroids. You are a big rural county. You have a AA+ credit rating and no rural county has that. And that's a testament to the diversity of industry that you have, the housing, the tourism, you've got it all. And those things will grow in its own momentum if you want them to. But you would now have the opportunity of strategically managing that growth on what you want this county to be over 20 years. And so I would urge you to give us a direction, but I also understand that, we can create that RFP and then go out and bring it back to you. Or maybe you would like to see the RFP before it goes out. I would defer to the board on that.
I'm fine with the committee developing the RFP and going out for it and then bring it back to us for consideration when we get the reason, when we get applicants back. If that's acceptable to the board.
And when you say the committee, do you mean a committee or what?
The zoning.
Oh, very good. I wasn't sure what you meant by that.
Planning
Yeah.
zoning committee.
Yeah. And I would just add on, if I could, Commissioner, it's the fact that zoning ordinances in planning and zoning is a very important part of this. But as you heard Lance indicate, economic development as a strategic objective. Right now, we really don't have a strategy for economic development. In economic development, you haven't really needed one. It seems like businesses continue to grow and relocate, but the fact is affordable housing is a big deal in this area. Rental housing is a big deal. They all work together. They're all interrelated to each other. So a very important thing is ordinances. I get that, but there's so many other things that this plan could help address and provide structure to.
I would ask that the committee look at some of those ordinances that we have to get moving on quickly. I mean, they are, as we move forward, those are pretty, I think we have like 4 that we want to review anyway, 4 or 5. That we need to, that we're looking at implementing some new, and that would be what, feedlot, B&B. There was some phases of or not punishment, but enforcement issues that we had for some of the violations. We want to make sure there's reasonable enforcements, one way or the other. But there was at least one more ordinance that we were looking at.
I got a list upstairs, but yeah, those are the more
But
urgent ones.
the Airbnb and the feedlot, and I consider feedlot and the solar and wind farms kind of on the same ordinance could fit under. Well, anyway, do you want a motion on that? Do we move forward, entertain a motion to move forward with allowing planning and zoning committee to review the RFP for a comp plan and ordinance update?
I'll make a
And then
motion.
bring that back to the board for
Approval.
when we have applicants. So is
I
that
make
a
a-
motion?
Yep, I make a motion.
Motion by Erica,
Second.
second by John. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do you have
Thank you.
anything else?
I have
That was-
nothing further. No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for volunteering to give us that update and saying what your company can do. And
Yeah, anytime.
so. All right.
I think Bill
Oh, Ellis and Bill.
and Willis.
Willis.
Oh, sorry, Willis, did you want to go ahead and bring that? Hopefully you're, I didn't recognize you, but I think it was a little bit, just more information than what you.
There's an old adage says, when things are going well, don't interrupt.
And for those online, Willis asked to just be able to address the comp plan and ordinance review at the time, but I kind of forgot. And it went very well and for information. And
That's correct. Again, I'm Willis Mattson. I'm here appearing with Bill Hankey in regard to the comp plan, the ordinance, and is with specific reference to the feedlot and CAFO issue. We've appeared here several times in the past when you had a permit before you, and we all realized that we were well prepared
And
to deal.
Willis, let me just interrupt you because Lance just stepped back in. And Lance, this is Willis Madison and Bill Hankey from, they're representing the Ikes today.
The Isaac Walton League, yes. And you could consider this the beginning of your public involvement process in your comp plan and ordinance thing. But as we were very appreciative of the board's move to pause the influx of large animal feeding operations in Becker County by stating an intent to instigate your moratorium. We're had some discussions with Mr. Oman with regard to the formal steps to actually get to where you have an in-place enforceable moratorium. So we're here to, I don't know whether it takes another action by the board to authorize staff to get that in place, but we want to urge you to keep that process moving forward, because as your zoning administrator said, you may be a phone call away from having another facility come forward, and you will be in no better position than you were before unless you formalized that moratorium.
I would think he was talking about wind and energy.
I'm sorry.
I think Kyle was referring to wind and solar power.
Oh, that may well be. You very likely are on the cusp of getting some large facilities like that as well. But we're primarily interested. I don't think you'd have maybe you do have a moratorium in mind for wind and solar as well, but we think the one was specific to the CAFOs, and we supported that. We want to track with you and offer services. If you're hiring a consultant, I would suggest that there are a great number of resources here within the county, within your residents, within the Isaac Walton League that could bring value to the process and possibly save you some money actually on the consulting services, because you have expertise here, people who will step forward on a voluntary basis, work through such things as, water quality monitoring, as you had that as a provision of the permit before. We offered to work with the county on developing that, and that's, voluntary. In terms of the natural resource impacts, groundwater resource appropriation, those are things that many of our members have expertise in. They're retired from state government or from consulting firms or from industry where that was their job. And now they're just interested citizens in supporting. So we'd like to suggest that you maybe consider having a steering committee that works with your staff and works if with a consultant comes on, so that you're pooling these kinds of resources that are here in the county and maximizing that, and thereby possibly reducing some of the costs you'd have to hire that kind of expertise as a part of the consulting firm. So that's the kind of thing that we're
I think
we'd
look at individual consulting firms to see how they would include that type.
Sure, and by design, you could, basically instruct them to help assemble, identify, and then work with that kind of an impaneled local source of expertise. That oftentimes you'll have a citizen advisory panel, but you seldom will have a technical advisory panel made up of people who have special talents and resources. So you would target those people to draw on that kind of expertise. And then you couple that, of course, with your comprehensive land use plan. And it was good to hear Lance say that your ordinance development can move in lock sync with the comprehensive plan, because you have this need. If you have the moratorium in place, you hear that's going to take a year or so for the comp plan. The ordinance development could, because it is complex, would maybe take just as long. So your moratorium should have a time period within which you accomplish each of these things to make it defensible. If you have an applicant come in with a permit and you have an open-ended moratorium, that could be a failure of giving them due process. So your moratorium should have end dates on it, and
have an end
it has milestones
It's a
of
1
what
year.
you accomplished
It
during.
was a
that
1 year
process.
moratorium, and then I think Kylie might have to look into that if it can be extended. It was up to 1 year at the time. And Pat can confirm if we need to do any further.
Those are particulars that, yeah, I think the attorney and Pat, we'd like to work with your staff, with your zoning people, and walk through the milestones of that, and basically come back maybe next month with saying, okay, here is the stepwise plan that we get from where we are to where we need to be in order to not have the incident where we're kind of caught off guard by a big facility that we're not quite ready to handle. If you can stave those off for a particular period of time, then engage them, then everyone's working from the same playbook.
Hi, and thanks for having me. Again, Bill Hankey, Detroit Lakes. You know, I didn't have to go very far into my files to find the 2002, 2003 comprehensive plan. And, you know, obviously this has been evoked or provoked by the feedlot issue, as you've commented on. And it was interesting. I was looking at policy for District 4, which is Hamden, Riceville, Spring Creek, Cuba.
District 5.
Yeah, it was listed as policy District 4 for the comprehensive plan. But anyhow, one of the key tenets was encourage sustainable agricultural practices that reduce the risk of non-point pollution, conserve soil, and emphasize natural inputs, promote the use of green infrastructure to protect against erosion. So I think you can kind of see that it's there. And, you know, the presentation that we had today is very timely for the simple reason that it dovetails in sequence with all of these. And the comprehensive plan does have some guiding principles even from, you know, 20, 21 years ago. I have, as you know, I've done a reach out to Mr. Varberg, and we would love to be part of, you know, a work group, steering committee involved with comprehensive plan. I was looking back at the names from 20, 21 years ago, and I was on it, and any number of other of us who have a stake in the game and are very much interested in how all of these things can impact Becker County and some of the things that we set in place. And so the reach out is there. I do believe that we have some expertise. If the Nate and company choose to publish it or put it in the paper, I did make a commentary on one of the very serious risk factors that is associated with feedlots, and that being antibiotic resistance. I did speak to that back in September, but the data is coming out and it's surprising, you know, what's emerging from this. And so it can't be any more important than now, you know, to have a comprehensive plan that dovetails well in with our ordinances so that you really can address it well. And, you know, points that I'd like to drive on this specific issue is the very clear-cut environmental degradation, a destruction of the social fabric, you know, of our ag community and the county in general. And then the real elephant in the room that we're finding, and as a now retired physician and somebody that practiced for a number of years and had to struggle with antibiotic resistance, it is real. And in addition to human overuse of antibiotics, the ag use is running neck and neck with that. And as a matter of fact, for agriculture purposes, 60 to 70% of antibiotics sold in the U.S. are for ag and feedlot purposes. A lot of it going to these large corporate feedlots because it is really difficult to keep these animals healthy. Then the effluent and the presence of antibiotics in the groundwater just add to this pool to create this resistance. So this is a high magnitude issue, and all of these, we have to weigh risks versus benefits. And we really need to have a good, sound discussion with this. And I think this really sets the stage for that. And we really want to be a part of it. So that's all I have.
Thank you. And I think that's going to be key, the stakeholders in all the county. I mean, all stakeholders will be put into whatever group we go with. That'll be one of the keys to their success.
I realize that we have one side of this, but robust discussion is what, and transparency is what's going to lead us best, I think, probably.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we only have a couple things left on the agenda. The next is our closed session or closed meeting for discuss some labor discussion. And then after that, we're just going to have a short dialogue about policy, and there won't be any decisions after that. It'll just be commissioners kind of guiding how we want to move forward with the policy updates. So with that, I'm going to read our closed session statute, and we'll close the meeting. Do I read this first and then?
Read entirely and then there'll be a vote, yes.
Motion to close the meeting pursuant to Minnesota Section 13D03, Subdivision 1B. The governing body of a public employer may by majority vote in a public meeting decide to hold closed meeting to discuss strategy labor negotiations, including strategies, developments, discussion, and review of labor negotiation proposals. Can do it pursuant to sections 179A01, 179.25. Entertain a motion to close. Motion by John.
I'll second.
Second by Erica. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We are entering closed session to discuss labor. Thank you.